The jungle was alive with strange sounds. Captain Daniel Hayes moved carefully, pushing aside the thick green leaves as he walked deeper into the unknown forest of planet Ilaria. His boots sank slightly into the soft ground, and every step released the scent of wet soil and moss. High above, giant trees stretched toward the sky, their silver-colored branches shining faintly in the light of 2 moons. Daniel was alone. His team had stayed back at the landing site to secure their equipment. He had volunteered to scout the area because he liked to see things with his own eyes. Machines and drones could map a world, but only a human could feel it, understand its details, and sense the hidden dangers. That was something he always believed. The mission was simple on paper: survey Ilaria for resources that the colonies might need. But Daniel never trusted simple missions. Too many times, a routine job had turned into something unexpected, and tonight, as the air grew colder and the forest sounds grew quiet, he felt that same uneasy warning in his chest. He reached a cliffside where sharp rocks jutted out like broken teeth. A faint light shone from below, inside a cave. Daniel narrowed his eyes. It wasn't natural. It wasn't the glow of insects or minerals. It was a softer, steady light, almost like a lamp. He paused, his hand resting on the grip of his sidearm. A human survey team was the only group supposed to be on this planet. So who was making light in a cave? Quietly, Daniel climbed down, using the vines as ropes. He moved like a shadow, careful not to disturb the loose stones. His training as a soldier before becoming an explorer still guided his instincts. When he reached the cave's entrance, he crouched low and listened. Inside, he heard the sound of water dripping, and then movement. Someone was there. Daniel slipped inside. The cave was larger than he expected, with crystal-like walls that reflected the light in thousands of tiny sparkles. At the far end, next to a shallow pool, was a figure, a young woman. She had pale, silver-blue skin that glowed faintly in the dark, and her long hair shimmered like liquid gold. She was kneeling by the water, her back turned, adjusting something on her wrist. Her clothes were simple but elegant, decorated with patterns that looked too fine for any ordinary traveler. Daniel froze. He knew instantly she was not human. For a moment, he considered stepping back and leaving quietly, but before he could move, the woman turned her head. Their eyes met. Hers were wide, glowing like bright emeralds. She gasped in shock, then stumbled backward, pressing her hand to her chest. "You, human," she whispered in fear. Daniel raised his hands to show he meant no harm. "I don't want trouble," he said calmly. "Who are you and what are you doing here?" The woman shook her head quickly. "Please, don't hurt me." Her voice trembled. I am no one, just a servant, nothing more. I was separated from my group." Daniel studied her carefully. A servant? That did not match her appearance. The fine markings on her clothes looked more like symbols of rank, and her accent, though alien, carried authority, not submission. "You don't look like a servant," Daniel said slowly. Her eyes darted around the cave as if searching for escape. "Please," she begged. "If they find me here, they will kill me. If you turn me in, they will not spare me. I beg you, keep my secret." Daniel frowned. "Who's looking for you?" She pressed her lips together and shook her head. "I cannot say. If I tell you, you will hand me over." The human captain stepped closer, though still keeping his movements calm. "If I wanted to hand you over, I would have already called my people. But I haven't. That should tell you something." The woman hesitated. Her hands trembled slightly. She looked young, maybe in her early 20s by human standards, but there was a dignity about her, a quiet strength beneath her fear. Finally, she said, "My name does not matter. I am only trying to survive." Daniel noticed something else then. On the wall behind her lay a small device, half broken, half glowing. It looked like advanced alien technology, nothing humans had ever seen before. She must have been trying to repair it when he found her. He pointed at it. "That yours?" She quickly moved to block his view. "It is nothing. Just a tool." "Daniel," sighed. Look, I don't know who you are or what you're hiding from, but if you stay in this cave, whoever's chasing you will find you sooner or later. Her eyes widened again. You know? I've been in enough hunts to know the signs, Daniel said. The forest outside is too quiet. Something's moving through it. Soldiers, maybe. The woman's fear grew stronger. They cannot find me. If they do... She stopped, clutching her arms tightly. Please, human. I lied when I said I was a servant, but I cannot tell you the truth, not yet, just please don't kill me and don't give me to them. Daniel studied her again. He could tell she was hiding something important, maybe too important. His instincts told him that this meeting was no accident. The universe rarely worked that way. Finally, he nodded. Fine, I won't hurt you, but you'd better start trusting me, because if you're in danger, then so am I now. For the first time, she looked at him not with fear, but with a small spark of hope. Outside, the sound of engines hummed in the distance. Searchlights cut across the treetops. Whoever was hunting her was getting closer, and Daniel realized his quiet mission to survey minerals had just turned into something much larger. The night on Alaria grew darker as the second moon slid behind the clouds. The jungle, once noisy with insect calls, now felt empty and tense. Captain Daniel Hayes knew the silence meant only one thing. Hunters were near. He crouched at the cave's entrance, peering into the shadows, listening to the faint hum of engines above the trees. The alien woman stood behind him, her hands shaking. She hugged her arms close to her chest, as if the sound of those engines reached into her. Very soul, they are here, she whispered. They will not stop until they find me. Daniel glanced at her. Who are they? Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a long moment, she said nothing. Finally, in a soft voice, she replied, Soldiers. Loyal to my father's court. That was all she gave, no more. But it was enough for Daniel to understand the danger. Soldiers searching for her meant she was not some common traveler. She was someone of great value. He turned back to the forest. If they're soldiers, then they'll sweep the area in patterns. We don't have long before they reach this cave. The woman looked at him with frightened eyes. You will not hand me over? Daniel gave a short, humorless smile. If I wanted to, I could have already shouted your location, but I haven't. That should count for something. For a moment, she simply stared at him, as if trying to read his thoughts. Then she nodded, though her fear did not fade. Stay close, Daniel said firmly. He checked his gear, then motioned toward the cave's side tunnel. We're moving. Now. The tunnel twisted sharply, leading them deeper underground. Their footsteps echoed against the stone. The faint glow from the crystals lit their way, though shadows loomed at every turn. Daniel moved fast, yet quietly. He had learned during his years as a soldier that speed meant nothing if it drew attention. Behind him, the woman followed, clutching the strange device she had been repairing earlier. She carried it like it was the most precious thing in the universe. After several minutes, they reached a narrow crack in the cave wall. Daniel squeezed through first, then helped pull her after him. On the other side, the tunnel sloped upward, leading back to the surface. As they emerged, the sound of voices drifted through the trees. Harsh, metallic tones spoke in an alien tongue. Daniel crouched low, guiding the woman into the thick brush. Through the leaves, he saw them. 5 tall soldiers in silver armor, their helmets glowing faintly. Each carried a sleek rifle that looked far more advanced than any human weapon. They moved with sharp precision, scanning the ground with handheld sensors. The woman sucked in a breath. Daniel quickly placed a finger over his lips. She nodded, holding her breath. The soldiers stopped not far from their hiding spot. One raised his scanner and a faint blue light swept over the ground. Daniel's heart pounded. If the machine picked up their heat signatures, it was over. But just then, a loud roar echoed through the forest. Somewhere in the distance, one of Alaria's wild beasts announced its presence. The soldiers turned, distracted for only a moment. Daniel used that chance. Move, he whispered. They crawled away silently, keeping to the undergrowth. Step by step, they slipped out of the soldiers' scanning range. When they were far enough, Daniel let out a slow breath. That was close. The woman's hands trembled as she clutched her device tighter. They will not stop. They will search until they find me. Daniel looked at her seriously. Then you better start telling me the truth. Why are they after you? Who are you really? She hesitated. Her glowing green eyes darted away from his. I cannot. If you know, it will only bring danger to you. My people. They do not forgive humans. They do not forgive anyone who helps me. Daniel shook his head. Too late for that. I already helped you. If they catch me, I'll be just as guilty as you. So if you want me to keep you alive, I need answers. The woman's lips trembled. She looked like she was fighting an inner battle, torn between fear and trust. Finally, she whispered, My name is Solara. I am not a servant. I am... Her voice dropped even lower. I am the daughter of the Emperor. Daniel froze. He had suspected something important, but not this. The Emperor's daughter? A princess? That explained the fine clothes, the strange device, and the relentless hunt. Princess Solara, he murmured. So that's why they want you so badly. She quickly shook her head. Do not call me that. Not here. If they hear, it will doom us both. Daniel gave a short nod. Fine. Solara it is. But you realize what this means? If I get caught with you, they won't just shoot me. They'll probably drag me back for trial, or worse. I know, she said softly. Her eyes shone with guilt. That is why I begged you to leave me. It is too dangerous. Daniel looked at her for a long moment. Then he shook his head. Not my style. I don't walk away from someone being hunted down. Her expression shifted. For the first time since he had met her, a flicker of trust appeared in her eyes. They kept moving, deeper into the jungle. Daniel led the way, using his survival training to avoid leaving tracks. He brushed away footprints with branches and chose paths across rocks and streams to confuse the scanners. Hours passed. The night grew colder. Strange creatures whispered and clicked in the trees, watching the pair as they slipped past. At last, they stopped by a river that shimmered under the starlight. Daniel crouched near the water, filling his canteen. Solara sat on a fallen log, clutching her device. What is that thing? Daniel asked, nodding at it. She hesitated again, then said, It is a beacon, a communicator. But it is damaged. Without it, I cannot call for help. Help from who? Daniel asked. Her gaze dropped to the water. Not my father's soldiers. Another ally. She said no more. Daniel studied her for a moment. Clearly, there was more to the story. But she was not ready to share it, for now survival came first. Suddenly, a sharp beam of blue light swept across the trees nearby. Search drones. Daniel cursed under his breath. Down, he whispered. He pulled Solara with him into the river. The cold water closed around them, as they pressed against the riverbank, hidden beneath hanging vines. The drone buzzed overhead, its light scanning the area. Daniel held his breath, his arm around Solara to keep her steady. The drone lingered for several seconds, then drifted away. Only when its sound faded did Daniel let out a slow breath. Solara looked at him, her face pale but her eyes burning with a mix of fear and awe. You saved me again. Daniel gave a faint grin. Get used to it. If we're going to make it through this, you'll need to trust me. For a long moment, she held his gaze. Then finally, she nodded. I will try. The night was far from over. The soldiers would keep searching, but for the first time, Solara seemed willing to trust a human, and Daniel knew that trust might be the only thing keeping them both alive. The forest of Ilaria seemed endless. The silver trees rose high into the night sky, their leaves whispering softly in the cold wind. Daniel and Solara walked quietly, following the river's edge. The hunt behind them was relentless, and Daniel knew they could not stop for long. Solara carried her broken beacon close to her chest. Every so often she looked over her shoulder, as if she feared soldiers would appear at any moment. Daniel noticed her nervous glances but said nothing. He knew she needed time. At last, when dawn began to rise and the sky turned faintly golden, they stopped under a massive tree with roots wide enough to hide them. Daniel crouched down, checking his scanner. The faint blue dots that represented the soldiers were still moving, but farther away now. They had managed to slip past the search drones for the night. Solara sat on the roots, exhausted. Her golden hair was tangled and her once elegant clothes were covered in dust. Yet even in that state she carried herself with a quiet grace. She was not like anyone Daniel had met before. "Here," Daniel said, tossing her a ration pack. "Not much, but it'll keep you going." Solara took it carefully, staring at the small silver packet. "What is this?" "Human field rations. Tastes bad, works good." She opened it, sniffed the contents, and frowned. Still, hunger overcame hesitation, and she ate slowly. Daniel watched her with faint amusement. The way she wrinkled her nose after every bite almost made him laugh. When she finished, she looked at him seriously. "You asked me before. Why? They are hunting me. Why I lied. Perhaps you deserve to know." Daniel leaned against the tree trunk. "I'd say I earned it." She lowered her eyes. "I am Princess Solara of the Arkan Dominion. My father is Emperor Kale." Daniel gave a short nod. He had guessed as much after last night. "So, royalty. That explains the soldiers. But why would the Emperor's daughter be hiding in a jungle, hunted by her own people?" Her hands tightened around the beacon. She took a long breath before speaking again. "My father wishes to bind me to the Vorak Alliance. Their leader's son is powerful but cruel. If I agree, our two empires will join. If I refuse, war will come." Daniel listened quietly. Her voice trembled as she continued. "The bond is not like your human marriages. It is a fusion, a link of mind and spirit. Once it is made, I would no longer be myself. My thoughts, my will, my freedom, gone. I would exist only as his shadow." Her emerald eyes glistened with pain. "I could not accept that. So, I fled." Daniel frowned. "So your father sent soldiers to drag you back?" She nodded. "To them, I am not a daughter. I am a key to power. They care nothing for what I want." For a long moment, silence filled the air. Daniel studied her face, the weight of her words sinking into him. He had fought wars before, seen men and women forced into choices they never wanted. But this was different. This was one person, standing against an empire. "And what about that thing you carry?" Daniel asked, nodding at the beacon. "Who were you trying to call?" Solara hesitated, then whispered, "And there are rebels, not against my father, but against the Vorak. They promised to protect me if I reach them, but without this beacon, I cannot reach their ship." Daniel rubbed his chin. "So you need time to fix it?" "Yes," she said softly. "But they will not give me time. Already the soldiers are close, and now you are caught in this as well. I am sorry, human. You should not have to suffer for my choices." Daniel shook his head. "I don't regret helping you. Someone had to." She looked at him with surprise. "Why? You gain nothing by saving me." Daniel gave a small smile. "Maybe humans don't always need a reason. Sometimes it's enough to know someone needs help." For the first time, Solara smiled faintly. It was small and fragile, but it was real. As the sun rose higher, the jungle became bright with strange colors. Blue flowers opened, releasing glowing pollen. Small creatures with wings like crystal birds darted through the air. It was beautiful, but Daniel did not allow himself to relax. Beauty could hide danger. They moved again, heading toward the mountains that cut across the horizon. Solara said the beacon would work better on high ground. By midday, the heat pressed down hard, and the sounds of engines returned. Search ships flew above the treetops, scanning with beams of light. Daniel pulled Solara into the shadows each time, waiting for the danger to pass. But during one crossing, the beam swept dangerously close. Daniel grabbed Solara's hand and pulled her into a pit covered by ferns. They pressed close together as the light passed overhead. Solara's heart pounded so loudly he could almost hear it. She clutched the beacon tightly to her chest, her eyes wide. When the danger was gone, she whispered, "You risk yourself for me again and again." "I do not understand." Daniel shrugged. "Guess it's a human thing. We don't like bullies." Her lips curved into another small smile. "Perhaps your kind is not as my people say." "What do they say?" Daniel asked. "That humans are reckless, violent, dangerous, that you think only of yourselves." Daniel gave a dry laugh. "That's not all wrong, but sometimes we surprise people." As they climbed into the foothills, Solara grew weaker. She stumbled often, her body unused to such rough travel. Daniel offered his hand, steadying her when she slipped. Each time she looked at him with a strange expression, part gratitude, part confusion. By evening they found a narrow cave in the rocks. It was small but hidden, a safe place to rest. Daniel built a small fire with dry branches, careful to keep the smoke low. Solara sat nearby, working on the beacon with trembling fingers. Sparks flickered from its surface, and strange symbols glowed faintly. Daniel watched her. "You think you can fix it?" "I must," she whispered. "It is our only hope." Hours passed in silence. At last, Solara set the device down with a sigh. "Not yet. I need one more part, something to focus the energy." Daniel frowned. "What kind of part?" "A crystal, the kind that grows deep within these mountains." Daniel glanced outside. The cave. The forest below was still alive with moving lights. Soldiers were searching closer again. He turned back to her. "Then tomorrow, we go find one." Solara looked at him, her eyes full of something deeper now. Not just fear, but trust. "You would do this for me?" she asked softly. Daniel nodded. "Like I said, not my style to walk away." For a long moment she was silent. Then she whispered, "Thank you, Daniel. If I survive this, it will be because of you." That night, as Solara slept lightly by the fire, Daniel kept watch. His rifle rested across his knees, his eyes fixed on the darkness outside. He thought of her words, of the Empire chasing her, of the war that might come if she failed. He knew now that this was bigger than either of them, and he also knew something else. Humans had always been underestimated by the great empires of the galaxy. But here, on this quiet jungle world, one human had already changed the fate of an alien princess, and perhaps, in time, he would change much more. The morning sun filtered through the silver leaves of the Ilarian jungle, casting strange patterns on the ground. Daniel and Solara had spent the night in the hidden cave, and although they had rested, danger was closer than ever. The search. Drones above had passed by, but their hum lingered in the air like a constant warning. Solara sat near the small fire Daniel had kept alive. Her hands moved carefully over the beacon, examining the delicate circuits and glowing crystals. "If I can fix this, the rebels will know we are alive," she said quietly. "But we have to be quick. My father's soldiers will not stop searching until they find me." Daniel studied her. "Then we make a plan, one that gives us the best chance." Solara looked at him with wide, worried eyes. "Do you think we can?" He smiled faintly, though it didn't reach his eyes. "We have to. There's no other choice." Daniel rose and looked at the terrain around them. The mountains ahead were steep, but the crystals that Solara needed could be found deep within the caves there. "We climb," he said. "It won't be easy, but the higher we go, the harder it is for anyone to follow us." Solara nodded, a mix of hope and fear in her gaze. "I trust you, Daniel." The word trust echoed in his mind. Trust was rare in war, rarer still between two species who barely understood each other. But this trust was growing, small, but strong, and Daniel knew it could be their only advantage. They began their climb. The forest thinned as they ascended, replaced by jagged rocks and small patches of grass. The beacon, now held carefully by Solara, pulsed softly. Daniel kept glancing around, alert for any sign of soldiers or drones. At one point, a branch snapped under Daniel's foot. He froze, but there was no immediate response. The soldiers had not found them. Yet. "Too quiet," he muttered. "That never ends well," Solara swallowed nervously. "Do you think they are still tracking us?" Daniel nodded. "Absolutely, they know we fled the jungle. They'll use every drone, every tracker, every satellite to find us. But we have one advantage." Solara tilted her head. "What advantage?" "You," Daniel said simply. "And human creativity." She looked at him confused. Daniel pointed to the path ahead. "See these cliffs? We can use decoys, false tracks, even local wildlife. Nothing here can match human improvisation when survival is on the line." Solara's eyes sparkled faintly. "You think of everything." Daniel smirked. "I've had practice." Hours passed and the climb grew more difficult. Solara's legs shook with fatigue. Daniel had to stop several times to help her over rocky ledges and across narrow ridges. Despite the exhaustion, Solara worked quietly on the beacon, connecting wires and adjusting crystals. Sparks flickered occasionally, and she sighed each time a part failed. Finally, they reached a plateau. The view stretched for miles, the jungle below, the mountains beyond, and the search drones still scanning the area like a swarm of metallic bees. Daniel crouched behind a rock observing the drones. "We can't stay here. Too exposed." Solara nodded. "I think I know a safer place. A cave nearby, smaller, less visible." They moved carefully toward it. Daniel took the lead, keeping watch while Solara followed. The cave entrance was narrow, almost hidden by a hanging curtain of vines. Inside, the air was cool and damp. Daniel looked around, checking for hidden dangers. "This will work," he said. "We can hide here and give you time to repair the beacon." Solara placed the device on a flat rock. "It's delicate," she warned. "One wrong move, and it will be useless." Daniel crouched nearby. "Then we protect it, and each other." For hours Solara worked, connecting delicate crystal filaments and adjusting energy conduits. Daniel kept watch at the cave entrance, his rifle ready. He had never seen technology like this, far advanced, far different. But the principles were clear. And Solara, despite exhaustion and fear, handled it with skill and care. Finally, a faint hum rose from the beacon. Light pulsed steadily. Solara's eyes widened. "It works," she whispered. "I can contact the rebels now." Daniel nodded. "Good, but that will draw attention. You'll have to be ready to move as soon as they respond." Solara looked up at him. "Can you help me get there? The crystals for the next part, now they are in a deeper cave, even more dangerous." Daniel smiled faintly. "Danger is what I do best." As they prepared to leave, a sudden flash of blue light cut across the plateau. Daniel grabbed Solara, pulling her to the ground. Search drones were sweeping the area again, closer this time. "They are tracking us," Solara whispered. Panic in her voice. Daniel nodded. "Stay low, we move fast and we confuse them." He led her along a narrow path, zigzagging to mislead the sensors. They used fallen rocks and thick bushes to block the scanning beams. Every movement had to be precise. One mistake, and they would be discovered. At one point, Daniel stopped and whispered, "This way." He pointed to a cliffside where a loose rock formation created a hidden tunnel. Solara hesitated but trusted him. Together they slipped inside. The tunnel was tight, forcing them to crawl. The sound of drones above faded, replaced by the soft drip of water. Solara held the beacon close, adjusting it as they moved. Finally, they emerged inside a large cavern. Stalactites hung from the ceiling, and faint crystals glowed from the walls. The air was cool and still. Solara sighed, relief flooding her features. We made it. Daniel nodded. For now. But we can't stay. The next crystal is deeper inside, and it will not be easy to get. Inside the cavern, Daniel and Solara navigated through narrow passages and uneven ground. The crystal deposits glowed faintly, casting an ethereal light. Solara guided them carefully, moving toward the largest crystal formation at the center. As they approached, she stopped suddenly. Be careful, she warned. The energy here is strong. If we misstep, it could overload the beacon, or worse. Daniel nodded, moving slowly. He admired her courage. Despite fear, exhaustion, and the constant threat of soldiers, she had never given up. Solara carefully extracted a large crystal from the formation. It shimmered in her hands, radiating energy that pulsed like a heartbeat. Daniel watched, fascinated. You really know what you're doing, she smiled faintly. I had to. My life depends on it. With the crystal secured, they began their descent from the mountain. Daniel led the way again, careful to leave no trace. Solara clutched the beacon, now upgraded with the crystal. The device pulsed steadily, stronger than before. I can send a signal now, she said softly. The rebels will know we are coming, and they will help us. Daniel nodded. Good, but we must be ready. Soldiers will not give up easily. As they reached a narrow ledge overlooking the jungle below, Daniel spotted movement. Alien soldiers were returning, sweeping the area with search beams. He grabbed Solara's hand. Stay close. We move fast. They slipped down the slope, moving through thick undergrowth and using fallen trees for cover. Every step was tense, every breath quiet. The soldiers passed nearby, oblivious to the pair hidden in the shadows. Finally, they reached a small river that would lead them to safer terrain. Solara knelt by the water, connecting the crystal to the beacon. A bright pulse of light shot into the sky. Daniel watched, a faint smile on his face. Signal sent. Solara looked up at him, hope shining in her eyes. They will come. We will not be alone anymore. Daniel nodded. And together, we'll make sure you stay alive. For the first time since their journey began, Solara felt something she had not felt in days. Hope. And Daniel, despite exhaustion and danger, knew one thing clearly. Human courage, intelligence, and ingenuity might just be enough to protect a princess and change the course of an empire. The jungle of Ilaria was quiet now, but tension hung in the air like a heavy mist. Daniel and Solara had reached a clearing near the river, where the beacon signal was strong. The rebels would arrive soon. The thought of allies finally coming brought a small sense of relief, but Daniel knew it would not be easy. Solara sat on a fallen log, her eyes bright with cautious hope. They are on their way, she whispered, watching the horizon. If we can hold this position, we might be safe. Daniel crouched beside her. Safe is relative. Soldiers are relentless. They will not stop until they know you are gone. She nodded. I understand, but I also believe that humans, your kind, can do things others cannot. You think differently. You take risks. You inspire trust. Daniel gave a short laugh. Inspire trust, huh? I just try to survive and keep others alive. If that inspires trust, then I'm glad. Solara looked at him with a mixture of admiration and curiosity. There is something remarkable about humans. Even when facing danger, you do not always choose violence. You reason, improvise, and find solutions. You see possibilities others overlook. Daniel shrugged. We do what we must. That's all. The sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the jungle. In the distance, a group of figures appeared, rebels. Sleek ships hovered above them, drones scanning the area. Daniel and Solara rose, stepping carefully into the clearing. One of the rebels, a tall woman with blue armor and sharp eyes, approached. Princess Solara, she said, bowing slightly. "We received your signal. We are here to help." Solara nodded, her hands clutching the beacon. "Thank you. We need to move quickly. My father's soldiers will be here soon." Daniel stood beside her, feeling the weight of responsibility settle on his shoulders. The rebels were prepared for a fight, but Daniel knew it was more than brute strength that would keep them alive. Human ingenuity and courage would be the deciding factor. Suddenly, a loud hum filled the air. Daniel looked up and saw alien ships descending. The Emperor's soldiers had tracked the signal. Searchlights swept across the jungle, scanning for movement. "They found us," Daniel muttered. "Get ready." The rebels raised their weapons, but Daniel quickly stepped forward. "No," he said firmly. "We need a plan. Charge blindly, and we all die. I've got an idea." Solara looked at him. "What are you thinking?" "We split them up," Daniel said. "Use the jungle to our advantage. We can mislead their sensors, create decoys, and strike only when necessary. We don't need to fight every ship, just make them think we're everywhere at once." The rebels looked uncertain, but Daniel's confidence was contagious. "I'll lead the first group," he said. "Solara, you stay with the beacon. Make sure it stays active. The moment I signal, the others will move." Solara hesitated for a moment, then nodded. "Be careful." Daniel gave a small smile. "Always am." Using his knowledge of the jungle, Daniel moved swiftly and silently. He set up small devices that emitted false heat signatures mimicking humans and animals. He directed the rebels to cover strategic paths, hiding in underbrush and behind rocks. The alien soldiers were clever, scanning systematically, but Daniel had studied them carefully. Their patterns were predictable. With careful misdirection, he led a group of soldiers away from the clearing deeper into the jungle. Solara watched from her hiding spot, her heart pounding. Each pulse from the beacon was a lifeline, a call for help. The rebels maintained communication, but Daniel was the one leading the critical part of the plan. Minutes passed, like hours. Then, as Daniel had predicted, the alien soldiers split, chasing decoys and false signals. Daniel turned suddenly, using a rope and pulley system to drop boulders, creating loud crashes that drew even more attention. The jungle erupted in chaos, but Daniel and the rebels moved carefully, never exposing themselves fully. Back in the clearing, Solara held the beacon high. "I see them," she whispered. "The rebels are moving into position. Daniel is holding them off." A surge of pride and fear filled her. She had never felt such vulnerability, yet she had never felt such hope. The human beside her, this one human, was proving what she had always suspected. Humanity could be clever, brave, and capable of turning the impossible into reality. The alien soldiers began to withdraw, confused by the decoys and traps. Daniel emerged from the jungle, sweat on his brow, a faint smile on his face. "They're moving away, for now." Solara ran to him, relief washing over her. "You did it. You saved us all." Daniel shook his head. "We did it. Humans, rebels, and a very clever princess. Together." Once the immediate danger passed, the rebels helped Solara and Daniel to a nearby landing zone. Sleek ships waited, engines humming softly. Solara approached one, touching its surface reverently. Daniel watched her, thinking of how far she had come, from hiding in fear, to trusting him, to now taking her first steps toward freedom. A rebel officer approached Daniel. "You risked your life for her. Why?" Daniel shrugged. "She needed help. Someone had to act. Humans, we do what we must sometimes without expecting reward." The officer studied him, impressed. "Not all humans think like that." Daniel smiled faintly. "Maybe not. But the ones who do, we can make a difference." On board the rebel ship, Solara finally spoke freely. "Daniel, I owe you my life." "You owe me nothing," he replied. "Just promise me one thing. Use your position wisely, not for revenge, not for power, but for what is right." Solara looked out at the stars, her mind filled with possibilities. I will. Humans have shown me something my people never did. Courage, wisdom, and the value of choice. I will not forget it. Daniel nodded. Good. Because the galaxy is bigger than any empire, and sometimes it takes one person to remind everyone of what's possible. As the ship lifted off, the jungle below receding into shadows, Daniel realized that humans were underestimated, not because they lacked strength, but because others had never seen what humans could do when they chose to act with courage and intelligence. Solara stood beside him, her eyes reflecting the stars. Your kind truly is remarkable, she said softly. Daniel smiled, feeling a warmth he had not known before. And your kind can learn from us too. Together, maybe we can change things for the better. The ship sped into the sky, leaving the hunting soldiers behind. For Daniel, Solara, and the rebels, it was not just an escape, it was a new beginning. The universe was vast, full of dangers, but also full of hope. And sometimes, it only took one human to remind others of what courage, compassion, and ingenuity could accomplish. Solara looked at Daniel one last time. Thank you. For everything. Daniel shrugged. Like I said, not my style to walk away from someone in need. As the ship entered faster than light travel, the stars streaking past, Daniel felt a quiet pride. Humanity had once again proven its worth, not by conquest, but by heart, mind, and courage. And in the galaxy beyond, that proof would echo far and wide. The adventure was over, but the legacy of trust, bravery, and ingenuity would continue.